Welcome to the ReachX podcast. Today we are discussing Latin America and its macroeconomic outlook and the various socio-economic developments that we have seen on the continent. Now, for those observers, for some observers, or for most of us outside, looking at it outside in, growth in Latin America has disappointed, despite expansive monetary policies, fiscal policies, and a whole host of markets in the region. Then, of course, there's a combination of self-inflicted wounds, poor weather, global events, you name it. That has prompted Continuum Economics to give a soft outlook for 2019. Joining us now are Pedro Tuesta, who's a senior economist at Continuum Economics, and Priscilla Rodrigo, an economist, a colleague of Pedro's, who joins us for the podcast. Pedro, if I may start with you, may I turn it over to you to give your opening remarks on your outlook for Latin America?
Hi, everybody. As Cora has mentioned, growth has disappointment. We have some hot points in Latin America. Argentina and Mexico are the ones facing particular risk. While Venezuela has a protracted collapse with no clear end. There is a good point, which is Brazil. Although the new government has lost some of the market confidence, Brazil has still the largest upside in the region. On the contrary, Mexico's government has confirmed the market concerns as its policies are likely to increase fiscal imbalances. We still believe Argentina's ongoing crisis has increased the probability of a change of policy following elections later this year. Most of the region pursues cyclical fiscal policies. Therefore, as growth has to adjust to lower growth, as fiscal stances have to adjust to fiscal growth, to lower growth, that will add to downside pressures on growth. Monetary policy is likely to remain expansive, with the exception of Mexico and Argentina. There is no room for further expansion, however, because inflation expectations, with the exception of Chile or Colombia, have increased.
Thank you so much for giving us a backgrounder. And I think, at this point, the most important place to perhaps start with would be Brazil, one of the biggest economies in Latin America. So, Pedro, in your opinion, what's the most important issue facing Brazil?
The most important and pressing issue for Brazil is the pension reform. If Congress does not approve the reform, the fiscal situation will continue to deteriorate, and the debt to GDP ratio will raise over 100% for the GDP in the next 4 years. That will bring more downgrades and probably a long period of low growth and crisis in Brazil. Even if the fiscal reform is approved, there is a clear agreement. There is a clear idea that the government has to do something after the approval. Now, Congress and most of the population agrees that a reform has to be approved. What is not agreed is what kind of reform or how much savings they have to approve. As any savings, that means somebody has to pay. That is what is the uncertainty in Brazil. That uncertainty has created an environment in which investment has not come back. Therefore, growth has not picked up as many were expecting, and also at the central bank has not been able to expand monetary policy to help the reviving growth. As we're saying, it's a fiscal problem, and therefore there is no possibility of fiscal policies to be done. So our base case scenario is that Congress will approve a reform. However, that reform will be a watered down version of what the government wants to do. The government wants 1.2 trillion reais savings. We believe that the Congress will approve below 800 billion. Therefore, there has to be more effort from the government to reduce the ratio, the debt to GDP ratio. The main problem then is that some of the political capital from the government to push through Congress reforms should be spent, and therefore making more reform, making more savings will be difficult. But so far, the good thing is the population and Congress do believe that those reforms have to be made, and that's a positive.
I think another market we can turn our attention to, of course, is Mexico, and of course, for all the unwanted reasons and all the actions of President Trump, it is currently in the world's focus. But set aside all these Trump tariffs, but even if you look at things holistically, Pedro, what in your opinion are Mexico's vulnerabilities?
Mexican vulnerabilities is that it's the government view of how the economy should recover. There is this government was basically brought to power because of the rejection of previous governments who were corrupt, ineffective. The main problem is that in rejecting the previous government, they're also rejecting all the good economic policies they were implemented. This government basically wants to reduce the power of the private sector in determining the market prices. They want to expand the government intervention in the economy. That is reducing, obviously, the private sector interest in investing, and also stretching the fiscal accounts to its limits. One result of that is the recent downgrade of the country, which is tied to its energy policy and the role of Pemex in that policy. So Pemex is a fairly bankrupt company, which is propped up by the state. So basically, whenever Pemex has troubles, the state has problems, and vice versa. So, and this government is trying to roll back all the energy reforms the previous government have been making, and therefore bringing back that joint risk between Pemex and the government. So as it goes, as the commentator was saying, the presenter was saying, there is an added risk to the external factors coming from the Trump administration, and that is that the current government is pursuing policies that are increasing the uncertainty in the economy.
I think no conversation on Latin America would be complete without a look at Argentina. And at this point, we were bringing Priscilla into the conversation to engage Priscilla in the dialogue. And I think it's worth asking, Priscilla, from where you view things, what is your outlook for the elections? How does President Macri resist populism? Do you see policy continuity after the elections? What are your thoughts?
So our baseline scenario is for no policy continuity after the election. The ongoing recession has complicated the government chances for re-election, and voters have made clear in the local elections that they are looking for a fresh alternative. Recently, former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner announced that she will not run for president, but for vice president on the Alberto Fernández ticket. That is in principle negative, because Macri was more likely to win if Fernández de Kirchner ran, as her disapproval rating would have favored Macri in an eventual runoff. But two main questions need to be answered in order to determine how negative this move is. So first, we need to see whether it unifies the opposition. Second, we need to see if the government reacts by also appointing a candidate with a less negative image. Candidates are not definitive until June 22nd, but what we can say at this point is that all political parties are moving towards the center of the political spectrum, to try to get support of the 1/5 of the still undecided voters. Now, what you need to keep in mind here is that the center in Argentina has nothing to do with what is generally understood as political center elsewhere. The center in Argentina, the so-called moderate Peronism, has interventionist, nationalist, and protectionist views. If the opposition wins, as we expect, the next president will likely favor capital controls and misleadingly target a reduction of Argentina's trade deficit. This is the kind of trade deficit focused approach that US President Donald Trump takes. Note that it is still possible that the government could win if the many undecided voters supports the government. Relatively better macroeconomic figures improve the government chances, and its chances could also improve if it manages to deliver a more socially oriented and centrist image.
Sure, and I think moving on from Argentina, I think one question again at the back of everybody's mind is where is Venezuela going? I see that you've in one of your notes, Continuum has said that the protracted collapse that we are witnessing in Venezuela poses some very systemic threats. So just your concluding thoughts on the region, would you turn your focus to Venezuela for us and give us an idea of where your thoughts lie vis-a-vis Venezuela?
Venezuela, it's a political problem right now. It's no longer an economic problem because the country economic collapse. It has moved towards Colombia and some of the neighboring countries, but it's not really going to impact the region anymore. So this is a political problem in which there is what we say a kleptocracy in Venezuela that has power, and until politically they don't break that union between the military and the Maduro administration, that is not going to be solved. The main problem there is that the latest attempt to unseat Maduro has brought Russia and China to support Maduro, making it a much wider problem than it was before. So this is a problem that may linger a longer time. The only impact for the region is, especially in Colombia, in which the migration has moved. But for us, from our point of view, the main challenge will be not to unseat Maduro, but to help Venezuela to regain its feet. That is going to require a lot more unity than the one required to unseat Maduro.
Thank you so much. That was a nice holistic overview of Latin America by our colleagues Pedro and Priscilla of Continuum Economics. Thank you both for your insight. For more details and for more podcasts, please go to www.reachx.co. Thank you.